All right, well, let's get to climate change because that is sort of the news of the last few days. It's been bubbling up. Look, let's face it, it's the news of the last few years. But there's a new report out that came out from the US saying that climate change, first of all, is happening. It's here, it's now, and it is going to cost the US economy greatly. That's essentially what it says. Trump doesn't believe it. He's not buying it. And we'll get into some of the details in the report in just a minute, but take a listen.
I've seen it. I've read some of it, and it's fine. Yeah, I don't believe it. No, I don't believe it. And here's the other thing. You're going to have China and Japan and all of Asia and all of these other countries, addresses our country. Right now, we're at the cleanest we've ever been, and that's very important to me. But if we're clean, but every other place on earth is dirty, that's not so good.
All right, well, we're going to unpack a little bit about what the president said there. He has a way of saying like one or two things that are kind of true mixed in with a whole lot of stuff that's just not. That's sort of what happened there. He is not wrong in saying that the rest of the country, or the rest of the world rather, needs to do their part. I mean, we're talking about the environment. That is shared amongst all of us. And so, if the U.S. were to clean itself up completely, which is kind of impossible, but let's just say that, we still need the rest of the world to follow suit. Unbelievably true. No way around that. However, first of all, I'm not sure we're as clean as we ever were. I'm not sure about that line. I'd have to fact check that. And also, I love that his first thing was like, it's fine. First of all, he's like, I read a little bit of it. It's fine. I don't believe it. Like, is it fine or you don't believe it? I don't know. But let's get to what this report is about, first of all. This is a report called the National Climate Assessment. It comes out because the Global Change Research Act of 1990 mandates that the U.S. Global Change Research Program must deliver a report to Congress and the president no less than every 4 years. And there are certain rules about what needs to be in it. They need to integrate, evaluate, and interpret the findings of the program, analyze the effects of global change on the natural environment, agriculture, energy production, and land and water resources, transportation, human health and welfare, and on the list goes. And they also have to look at human-induced change versus natural, and they need to project major trends for the subsequent 25 to 100 years. That's essentially what the purpose of this thing is. So this is the fourth report since 1990. Every 4 years they have to do it. It's the fourth one. And it's very long and very detailed. It's got something like 27 chapters. It includes a breakdown of each of the regions of the country: Northeast, Southeast, Caribbean, Northwest, Hawaii, Alaska. I mean, you name it. It's got all these different regions, and it talks about the effects in those regions in particular. It also talks about the climate effects on our international interests. It's very, very, very detailed, which is why it takes 4 years to do it, which means you don't read it in a day or two. Like, this is something that has to be studied. But it also includes in it the process to create it. So it is a scientific, essentially academic scientific study. And the president dismissed it in a soundbite. I don't believe it. Pfft. He piffed it. He gave it a pfft, a PFFFT. Pfft. He gave it one of those. I don't buy it. Because this is a man who would far rather believe, really whatever he wants, fact-based or not, and he doesn't like this because it means he will have to operate somewhat differently. But it is pretty inarguable if you take a look at it. In any case, you can be sure that the Democrats have taken a look at it and have their opinions on it. We pulled a clip from a Democratic a senator, Jeff Merkley. Here's what he had to say.
Well, and I tell you, we see the effects right now with the greater forest fires, the acidification of the Pacific Ocean affecting our oysters. The pine beetles are rampaging. So it's not even just looking into the future. It's here right now. And the answer is a complete conversion to renewable energy, which is now cheaper than fossil-generated coal plant energy. It is a 5-alarm fire for the planet. We've had the U.S. government's report, which came out last Friday, saying we are in deep trouble and we need to act aggressively. And aggressively means an end to burning fossil fuels.
Okay, so that's the Democratic take, or one Democrat's take on the situation. Essentially, important in what he said was we need to make the switch to renewable energy, and he called it a full move to renewable energy. And there really is no reason we can't do that. It's now cheaper than fossil fuels and safer in many ways. So, we're talking about a president who has, been an advocate of bringing coal back and trying to get the coal mines, back up and running. Not a good idea. But of course, the president, in my opinion, only said those things when he was campaigning in coal towns. Didn't actually mean it. So take that for whatever it's worth. But the bottom line is renewable energy makes a lot of sense. It is hugely important. Oh, and thanks to Nick for fact-checking the president there. He is correct that the U.S. is the cleanest it's ever been. However, its rate of getting cleaner has slowed since Trump took office. So it's true, but it's getting less true year over year. In any case, the bottom line is you have to the fact that the president keeps telling people this is not true is not helpful. We should be setting an example on this front, just as we should be setting an example on many fronts that we're not right now in the world. Well, the world also, the international community, has a report as well that came out today. Because it only came out today, I am not as up on what this report says, but it's a UN report. It was released today. And it basically says that the world is falling very short of the 2-degree goal for climate change. That's this whole idea that we are trying to limit the global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. And if we do that, we can survive. If it goes above a warm up higher than 2 degrees, we're in trouble. Things like all of those things you see in all the post-apocalyptic movies could start to happen. Water levels rising, more fires, more big storms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the report that the UN put out said that in 2017, we had the highest levels of carbon emitted globally, the highest levels. So while the U.S. may be at its cleanest globally, highest levels emitted. And with the current projections, we would be at a 3.2 degrees Celsius of warming. That's more than 2, in case you aren't a mathlete. I'm not a mathlete, so it's bad. That's the bottom line. And so this is looking at the the target of increase in degrees by 2100, by the year 2100. So we're not in a good place right now. And it's so funny because whenever I see the effects of global warming, in my own life, wherever I'm traveling to or when I'm here, I always say, well, it feels like, the winter got colder or the summer got longer or the spring got shorter, but maybe I'm just imagining it. And I think that's how a lot of Americans feel. It's very gradual and you're not really sure that it's real because it wasn't that different last year. But if you look at this year and you go back and look at the history, it's very different. In fact, over our Thanksgiving break, this is what my wacky family does. Over the Thanksgiving break, somehow we got on the subject of climate change. Somehow felt like a relatively safe political topic. Like, it's kind of hard to be against, survival of the human race, Anyway, we got on the subject, and apparently there is I'll have to see if I can find it so I can put it in our show notes for all of you, but apparently there is a tool in the New York Times where you can type in your zip code, and it will show you, or you're supposed to put in, I think, the town you were born in, and it will show you the change in climate in the town you were born in from the year you were born to now, and then it will project it however many years into the future. And let me just say, it ain't pretty. We were all doing it. We were like, oh, that's bad. Like, all you do is look at you, oh, that's bad. That's bad. And they base it on the number of days a year over 90 degrees, I believe, is how they do their calculations. So, in any case, let's just be clear about this. Climate change is real, and we do need to reduce carbon emissions globally, which means we don't pull out of things like the Paris Climate Agreement. In fact, we try to strengthen deals like that, and we should lead the way. We should lead the way.